Okay, so now that we have the migrate tool installed, and we can easily verify that by saying migrate dash version. Okay, and let's now use this migrate tool. So let me come here, let me open a terminal. Okay, let me come all the way up. Okay, so I want to specify that I want the migration files to be created. And so I will simply say migrate, and I will say create. I will use the flag SEQ, which means sequential numbering, and the extension of the migration files will be .sql. Okay, and I will also use the dir flag, which means which directory the migration file should go into. If this file does not if this directory does not exist, it will be created. Okay, migrations. Right, and now I will need to specify the name of the migration file. That's the last thing I do. And so I'm going to call it create underscore schools underscore table. Right, so this migration file will be used to create the schools table. Okay, so if I type ls, you'll notice that we have the migrations directory. In fact, let me come over here. Okay, we now have a migrations directory, and in this directory we have two files. The first one is named notice 00001. Okay, so we're starting at 1. So if you create another migration file, that one will have 0002 because we specified the down here we specified the SEQ flag. Okay, so it's going to be called create schools table down. Okay, and there is a corresponding create schools table up. Okay, so there's an up file and a down file, and I'll show you how to use them in a few. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to open the up because the up allows me to actually do the modification, the creation. Okay, and the down allows me to revert or to roll back. Right. So the up means that I want to put in the code that creates my schools table. Okay. And so let me use the two dashes because that's how we do comments in SQL. So the name of this file is migrations 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 1 underscore create underscore schools underscore table dot up dot SQL. Okay, great. So now let's simply write our SQL code to create our schools table. So create table if not exist. The name of our table is schools. Okay, and this table will have ID, okay, which will be big serial, okay, 64-bit integer. This will be our primary key. Okay, then we'll have our created at field. We'll have a timestamp. Again, you all know what this means because we've done it previously. So timestamp with time zone. Okay, and it's not null. Okay. Remember, we make everything not null. All right. Default will be null. All right. So we have that. So we will simply move on to name, which is text again, not null. And I will copy this since I will use this. Okay. So we have name, we have level, we have contact, we have phone, and we have email, we have website, we have address, we have mode. Okay, and mode is an array. If you recall, it's a slice, and so we can use the array type that PostgreSQL provides us, and we can simply specify that by doing open close square brackets. So it's an array type. Okay. And of course we have version, and version will be integer, and it will be not null, and it will be a default of 1. Okay, so this is all we need for our up migration file. So what if we wanted to undo this this create table command? Well, we will place that in the down file. So let me copy this. Okay, so in the down file, okay, so this is down. Okay, so in the down file, we have to write the SQL code that will reverse that process. And of course, we know that if we create a table, to undo it, we simply drop it. So we're going to say drop table if exists and schools. Okay, that's it. So this is what goes into our down migration file. Okay, so down reverts what change you made from the up. Okay, great. So that takes care of that. Let's create another set of migration files. So let's say I want to do check some constraint. Okay, check that some field is between some range. Okay, let's say for example we want to make sure that in the array, okay, in the mode field, there is at least 1 and no more than 5 modes entered. Okay, so how would you do that? Well, let's close that. Okay, and let's create a new pair of migration files. Okay, and so to do that, we'll simply rerun the migration command. Okay, guess I'll have to retype it. So migrate. Okay, I'm gonna use create. Again, we're gonna keep using sequential. The extension, of course, will be .sql. Right? Again, the directory that these migration files will go into will be the migrations directory. And the name of this set, this pair of migration files, will be called add underscore schools underscore check underscore constraints. Okay, so all my constraints that I want on the schools table will be in this file. Okay, and I press enter, and so now you'll see that there are 4 migration files. So we have the previous one, 1, 1. Now we will have 2. Okay, so this one is now 2. So the second migration file that we created now have 2, and that's because of the SEQ flag. All right, so let's use the up. Let's use the up constraint. So let me change this to 2. Create, not create, but add schools check underscore constraint. Okay, so let's go ahead and create our constraint on the schools table. So we'll use the alter table command. Okay, so alter table schools, okay, add constraint, and the constraint that we're going to add is going to be called mode underscore length underscore check. Right? It's a very appropriate name. And the command is actually now, so we're going to say check. And what do we want to check? You want to check that the array length, and this is a built-in function in Postgres, okay, array length, and it takes the field that it should check, and so the mode, which is the array field, and because an array can have columns and rows, we need to specify what it should find the length of. Should it find the length of the columns, or should it find the length of the rows? So we only care about columns, right? Remember, columns is like, so for example, if the array has something like maybe face to face, followed by maybe online. Okay, so in a sense, these are columns. Okay, and so to specify columns, we simply use the value of 1. Okay. Okay. So in most cases, we'll be using 1. Okay, and once we have done that, we have to specify what is the actual constraint that we're checking. And we're actually checking that the array length is between 1 and 5. Okay, and that's what we're checking for. And of course, let's end it with a semicolon. Okay, so that is our constraint that we're checking for. All right. Again, you already know how to make a constraint. You already know about the check command. The only thing that is new here is this array length function, which is built in. Okay, So now let me open the down file. And so how would we undo, let's change this to down. How would we undo that addition of the constraint? Right? Well, that's not difficult. All we have to do is to say alter table. Right? And what do we do with alter table? Well, we simply need to drop the constraint. Okay, so drop constraint if exists. And what's the name of our constraint? We call it mode length check. Right? That's the name of our constraint. Mode length check. All right. So that is it. So before any data is added to our database table, this constraint will be run on that data, on that row, and if it fails, then we will get that error message, right, about the constraint violation. Okay, so we have our two migration files, one for creating the table and one for adding the constraints to the table. Now again, you could have put the constraints in the first migration file. So the table name, creating the table, then creating the constraints in one set of migration files. That's okay. But of course, it's nice that we have separate migration files for the constraints. All right, so now let's actually see how we run these constraints to actually create the tables. And so to do that, I will simply specify the migrate command. Let me come up here. The migrate command. Okay, and I will specify the path of the directory that contains the migration files. And we know that that is ./migrations. Alright, and then now we specify the database that the migration should be run against. And so we will simply provide our environment variable. So it's apple tree db underscore dsn. And now this is the important part. We need to say which of the migrations files should we be executing, and we want to execute the up migration files because those are responsible for the creation, for the changes, for the updates. Of course, we could also say down if we want to revert or if we want to do a rollback. Okay, but for now, we just want to run the up migration files. Okay, so we didn't have any errors. Okay, so one thing I think I forgot. Actually, no, I didn't. Yeah, got my semicolons. Okay, so we don't have any errors. All right, didn't give us any errors. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to verify that the tables were actually created. I could easily do that here. Maybe I should. Okay. Yeah, let me just do it here. So let me call PSQL, okay, $, apple tree underscore db underscore dsn. Okay, we're in. So let's simply list the tables. Okay, so we have a schools table, and then we have the schema migrations table. So the migrate tool actually creates a table that it uses to manage the migrations. Okay, So let's see what's in there. Let's say select all from schema underscore migrations. Okay, and then it says version 2, and it says dirty false. Okay, great. Now version and dirty, we'll talk about those as we transition through. All right, and so let's simply see what is in schools. Okay, and so we have ID created that, all the fields that we created. Then of course we have our indexes, ID, and of course we have our constraint, right, which is right down here. All right, so everything seems to be working properly, and we did a successful database migration. All right, so I'm going to leave it here. Again, this is just the up version. If we ever have to make changes, which I think we will later on, to our database table, to our schools table, we will either be using up or we'll be using down if you want to revert changes. All right, I'll see you in the next lesson. And so since we have our database table set up, we want to now move to the CRUD section of our lesson, where we'll start writing data to the schools table. I'll see you in that next lesson.